All right, everyone, we're going to get started. Welcome to the 100th birthday celebration for James E. Bear Campbell. Woo! We're going to have a great lineup for you today. I'm just really grateful to see everybody in this space to celebrate my mentor, someone who was so dear to me. But before I get into why Mr. Campbell, how and why he was so special to me, I'm going to pass it over to the executive director of the Avery Research Center for African American History and Culture, Dr. Tamara Butler.
I'm shorter than Erica. There we go. Good evening. This evening? Sure. Afternoon. Some part of the day. So I want to welcome you all to the Avery Research Center for African American History and Culture. One of the things that I was thinking about, I was like, what do I want to highlight about this day and Mr. Campbell? And I think one of the things that I wanted to share was I realized Mr. Campbell was a part of my life before I even knew it. It was through a couple people. So if you're involved in Charleston and you're interested in activism and education, then you were probably on a Mr. Campbell listserv. And so when I was younger, my best friend's mother was on that listserv. Cecilia Byers was a teacher. She was also a good friend of Dr. Myrtle Glasgow. And so what I found one day, Miss Byers has since transitioned, but what I found one day was an email from her. And it had all these photographs in it, and it had all these things you should read. And it was an email that she had forwarded to me from being on Mr. Campbell's listserv. And so I think about that often, of like how people feed into you and plant seeds along the way. Mr. Campbell also reappeared in my life, little did I know. And my mother used to work at Rural Mission. And so when I was interviewed for this job, we had a luncheon or a dinner, a community dinner. And there were a lot of people here. Most people I knew. There was Senator and Reverend McKinley Washington was here that day with his wife, Beulah Washington. Paul was here that day. I don't know where Paul is now. Paul Gabarini was here that day. There he goes. Hey, Paul. And he was sitting at the table with Mr. James Campbell. And so I just think about that. My mom was like, I haven't seen Mr. Campbell in years. So they had a reunion too. And so for me, I just think about the ways that he has been touching different parts of my life and influencing me. And so it'd be not robbery that we do this here at Avery, where we continue to have those intersections of ways that Mr. Campbell has influenced not only the people who work here, but the people outside of these walls. And so today, this team has worked tirelessly to put on this event with community partners and students, but also this team has worked together to also to put together an exhibit that if we could floor to ceiling of all the things that Mr. Campbell has given to us and gifted to us. And so one thing that I think is really impressive about his library is that while we know him for all of his theories, there's also a lot of literature. And so for us, as an archive, a library, and a museum, we believe that you can't have one without the other. Art influences theory, theory influences art, and all influences how we should walk in this world. And so my hope is that through today's program and event, that you'll start to think about that, of how does art influence you? How are you influencing theory? And how is all of that shaping your walk and the way that you are in the world? And so I want to welcome you. There's food in the back. There's restrooms here. There's restrooms on the second floor and the first floor if you need them. And staff are all around. Wave your hands if you're a staff member. There you go. If you need some direction in the building. So I just want to say thank you all once again for being here. And I hope that you enjoy the rest of your evening. Thanks.
All right. Excellent. So we also have some handouts from Mr. Campbell's personal papers. So please take some handouts. We've got a book. Paul, you want to hold up that book in the back there? What's that one called? A Life to Remember, James E. Campbell, A Life to Remember. So y'all are welcome to take a copy. I've got extra ones on the cart somewhere, so y'all take that with you. And yeah, just thank you. Raise your hand if you were on the planning committee for this event. Yeah, shout out to everybody that was on the planning committee. You know, what inspired me to convene the committee was everybody was celebrating Malcolm X's 100th birthday. I don't know if y'all watch Black Liberation Media, but they have a remixed morning show that they do on YouTube. And they did a series between February 21st, which was the anniversary of Malcolm X's assassination, and May 19th, his birthday, every Monday, 100 years of Malcolm X. And I caught it probably the first or second episode, so like the end of February. And I said, well, Mr. Campbell was born in 1925 too. He would be turning 100 this year too. And he was a major player, a major revolutionary in the Black liberation struggle. So if people are celebrating Malcolm X, we should be celebrating Mr. Campbell. So that's part of what motivated me to convene this today. And so thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dana and Stephanie and Terry and Paul and Erica Carter and Ann and Mildred and everybody that jumped on, and Dr. Taylor, who jumped on those planning committee calls with me, Darren. Yeah, I'm just really happy to be here with you all today. So I'm gonna pass it over to Paul, and he's gonna introduce who Mr. Campbell was. For those who don't know, I'm talking about Paul Robeson Campbell, the Paul Robeson Campbell. All right, and we're gonna hear from Paul, and then we're gonna hear some reflections. Thank you, Paul.
How's everybody doing? All right. So I've sat plenty of days, nights, hours, minutes, as my dad would say, and as I say in the family chat, matter in motion, thinking about what to say. And written some stuff down. And then I said, I'm just going to come up here and just give a brief synopsis, a brief intro of who my father is. I won't say was in talking past tense. And the first thing I want to do is I want to definitely reach out to Avery, the College of Charleston as a whole, the Avery staff, Ms. Butler, Ms. Erica, Mr. Calhoun, Mr. Darren, and all the other staff that I don't know. So if I don't say your name, I'm just grateful for the fact that you were able to come together and pull us in as a family to assist. But it was basically your guidance in terms of getting us to where we are right now. So I'm very grateful for that as a whole. And what I want to just a brief introduction as to who James E. Campbell was he was actually born James Eber Leo Campbell. This is going way back in 1925. And as he got older, he couldn't stand the Eber Leo. He would get teased in class. Eber Leo, Eber Leo. And so as time went on, when he got a little older, he was able to get his name, drop the Leo, and became James Eber Campbell. So that's just a little nugget right there, just in terms of who he was as an individual. Coming up here in Charleston, born on the east side on Amherst Street. They ended up moving over to President Street where the I came through. And then at that point, when the I came through, they had to move off of President Street onto Ashley Avenue. And that's basically a little bit of information for people who are quote unquote local here in Charleston. But I want to say that as my father as a whole was a universal man. And I say was, even though I'm still talking in the present, but just in terms of the people that he would come in contact with, and he was always learning. Even at 95, when he transitioned, he was always learning. And I think that's the spirit that I want to leave with everybody as an introduction, that no matter what you do in life, you're always learning. At whatever stage you are in life, you're always learning. I think it's critical that you look and you embrace technology as a whole. And he was adaptable. He wasn't a figure, he wasn't a image of a figure caught in time. He was always learning, always reaching out, always studying. And in talking with him, he would always make that note, that sound. For those who knew James. And it was just him clearing his throat, but at the same time, just thinking. And so the challenge to everyone here in this room, moving forward, the people who are ever watching online, is embrace change, embrace technology. Don't stay stagnant in life as a whole. Always agitate the surface. Always scratch the surface. Always challenge things in life. Question things in life. And I'm gonna close on this note. Just think of when I came up, the only person who I saw who had a cell phone or a phone was Telly Savalas, Kojak. And I was enamored by the fact that there was a cell phone in a car. But zip forward to today, and almost 99.9% of everybody's on a cell phone. And just in that short span of time, technology is taking over. And just think of what the technology will be 5 years from now. Where will you still be on, quote unquote, a handheld cell phone, or will you have mental telepathy? I'm going sort of down the road in terms of what a conversation that my dad would probably have. And mental telepathy in terms of, will you need to actually hold a physical device? Or will the challenge be where you have mental telepathy and you're able to communicate with people or with individuals just through thought? Now, I don't want anyone to say, hey, what in the world is he talking about? This is supposed to be about James Campbell. I'm going down a road in terms of how my dad and conversations that my dad would have, and always thinking, always wondering, and open to learning. So I'll leave you on that note that whatever you do in life, whoever you come across in life, embrace change, embrace education, embrace reading, and embrace challenging yourself in terms of different perspectives of things. Don't just go with, if that's your comfort zone, agitate the surface a little bit, as Frederick Douglass would say, and challenge yourself in terms of thoughts and philosophy and everything else. And that is who James Eber Campbell is. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. That was beautiful. Okay, so we're going to get into some reflections about Mr. Campbell. I'm going to go first. Me and Darren are going to go first because we're the most likely to start crying. So we can go first, and then we can just sit back in the back and cry the rest of the time, and that's fine. So I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Campbell when I moved to Charleston to get a master's from the College of Charleston in 2007. And I was trying to figure out what I was going to write my master's thesis about. I was very interested in Malcolm X's life. I had read his autobiography, very much obsessed with Malcolm X, and I was picking my supervisor's brains all the time. I was always asking Miss Mayo questions and Miss Deborah questions about Black power, Pan-Africanism, and civil rights. And Miss Deborah pulled me aside one day and she said, I have somebody that I want you to meet. And she was going to do an oral history interview with someone on a Saturday, and she invited me in the VC conference room, which is now kind of a storage area, but before it was a nice little conference space. So I showed up for this oral history interview, and who was sitting at the table across from Miss Deborah? Mr. Campbell. And it was like a 3-hour interview, and I was fascinated when I found out that he was a co-founding member of the Organization of Afro-American Unity. I was like, this is so cool, and that his papers were housed here at the Avery Research Center, and they hadn't even been processed. They had just recently been donated, so they were still in the process of even being made available to researchers. So I knew that there was a gold mine inside of those papers and that I was going to be able to write something, publish a master's thesis on something that nobody else had written about. And so, yeah, that was my introduction to Mr. Campbell. He was in the building multiple times a week, checking up on the status of his collections, always in the reading room. And if you spent more than 2 minutes talking to Mr. Campbell, he was going to start talking about matter and motion and dialectical materialism and all those things. Those concepts just used to go over my head. I didn't understand Marxism. I didn't understand dialectical materialism. I didn't understand historical materialism. And I'm sure he could see, as an educator, as an organizer, as a veteran, that my eyes were probably glazing over as he was talking to me, but he knew how important it was to plant those seeds. He saw that, in me. And I think that anybody who's serious about Black liberation, they're going to eventually develop a positive relationship with Marxism, with socialism, with dialectical materialism. And he knew enough to know that if I was that curious about those movements, that even if I didn't get it at the time at 22, that eventually I was going to revisit those things. And I did. It took me forever to write my master's thesis because I was struggling with the Marxism piece, and I finished my coursework in 3 semesters. And, usually you take a semester to write your master's thesis, and all my classmates were finishing their master's theses, and there I was still struggling to write mine. It took me 4 years to write it. And people were like, maybe this isn't for you. Maybe you should just, do something else. And I was like, no, I'm going to do it. And Mr. Campbell would see me and he would check, how's it going? And I'm like, it's going great. I'm going to get it, And eventually my thesis advisor, he told me, just don't talk about the Marxism aspect, because that's a lifelong kind of study, and you're not going to get that in a semester. You're not going to get that in 2 semesters. So I just ended up writing a biography of Mr. Campbell, and finally turned in my thesis, and I got my degree in 2013. And 2014, Mike Brown happened, and I kind of started to get out in the streets more, and I was thinking about Mr. Campbell and his oral history interviews and studying his life so deeply, and the sense of social responsibility that I picked up from him, learning about his life. And I was like, well, I have to do something. I can't just sit at home while this movement is taking off. And so eventually that led me to joining some activism circles in Charleston. I became active with Black Lives Matter Charleston in 2015 after Walter Scott was murdered by a North Charleston police officer. And then 3 months later, the massacre happened at Mother Emanuel Church. And the reason why I was motivated to do those things is because I was thinking about Mr. Campbell's and his influence on my life. And then in 2020, I co-founded the Low Country Action Committee with my comrades over here. And that's when I really started to dive more deeply into my political education. And we're starting to study dialectical materialism and what is socialism and scientific socialism and Marxism and Leninism. And I'm like, oh, Mr. Campbell, I get it now. I see what you were trying to say. Matter is always in motion. The unity of opposites, like it was all coming back. And, we co-founded Low Country Action Committee in June of 2020. And we spent like the first 6 months kind of just studying internally before we stepped out with our first program in January of 2021, which was the same month that Mr. Campbell transitioned. And so I think a lot about the work that we have done, in that 4 years or so since Mr. Campbell transitioned. And I just really wish that I could talk to him about all of the things that I'm learning as an organizer. And I'm just so grateful for everything that he taught me. I think about him every day when I'm organizing with the Low Country Action Committee and the various organizations that I am a part of. And I just hope that I'm making him proud. Thank you. I'm gonna stop there, and I just really appreciate y'all for bearing with me. And I want Darren to come next.
No, we're not doing that again this time. Not again this time. Peace, peace, peace. My name is Darren Lee Calhoun II, and I met James E. Campbell on August the 16th of 2012. That was my first homework assignment. Because if you knew Mr. Campbell, anytime you met him, he gave you a homework assignment. He gave you a reading assignment. And if you didn't see him, if you saw him 1 week later, if you seen him 2 years later, he would remember what books he gave you to read. And that's what I miss the most, that homework. At the Avery all the time, we talk about foundations, the foundations that we built on, the people who built the Avery. We talk about the people who forged the bricks, the people who were integral to us being who we are today, back as a normal school, as a high school, the institute, and then now as a research center. And I want to use that same thing when we think about our life, all right? You have different people who are part of that foundation that you build upon. I got Millicent, Mr. Franks. There are certain people who built me up, and also Mr. Campbell. Mr. Campbell, back in 2015, Erica and I, we were out there on the ground with Black Lives Matter, and would just go over to White House Boulevard. And one of the biggest things he said to me that sticks with me till this day, anybody can be an activist, but not everybody can be an organizer. You can go out there and shout from the rooftops and whatnot, but the movement works when the organizing is there. He took that from Black Lives Matter. I wouldn't have ever made it to school board without Mr. Campbell. And there were many days, many long nights that I sat up there and said, man, I need Mr. Campbell. I need Mr. Campbell to deal with this mess that we're doing up here at 75 Calhoun. I need him right now. But we made it. See, I told you I'm not going to do that again. But I always think about a couple things that happened with Mr. Campbell and I. One of my favorite stories about him. I'm driving him down to Paris Island to be interviewed about his time in the Marine Corps, and I'm driving that big old town car. Feel like a deuce and a quarter, but I'm driving that big old town car down to Paris Island, and he was saying, back in the '60s, I was with Jimmy and I, and I was like, Mr. Campbell, who is Jimmy? He was like, oh, James Baldwin. I was like, what do you mean? He just dropped his name just like Jimmy. Mr. Campbell knew everybody. I mean, you see inside of the collection over there, the letter from Langston Hughes. Like just critiquing his poem from when he was in college and critiquing his book of poems that he put together. But then also not just the major names that everybody knows. Anytime he came into the Avery, he knew everybody down to the custodial staff. That says something about a man. And as I leave, Paul mentioned about those deep conversations that Mr. Campbell will have with you, unknowingly that you thought you only had 5 minutes. I went to his house to fix his internet one day. And 2.5 hours later, I was like, I need to start recording you. And I found one of those recordings in my phone from 7 years ago. And just the first 30 seconds, you can hear just where Mr. Campbell was. This was a random conversation where I went to fix his internet.
They still have political system. Push back. No. So to pull out U.S. troops altogether. Political system rationalizes the class essence of society. Not being true. Having said that, but it's a slick system. Forward, there seems to be very little class system, it seems race system, economic system, it is a major step, and political system.
And they all feed each other.
Facilitating, supplementing each other. And folk are consistent that the economic system is the political system. It is. Just made a lot of its own people and different groups. Capitalism, Russia operates separately in Syria from the political system.
I still got another 15 minutes of that, but no, I'll always miss Mr. Campbell. That was my guy, and I appreciate everything he's done for all of us, because it wasn't just for me, it wasn't just for the Avery, it's for all of us, and he laid a strong foundation for everyone. So I think we're going to bring up next. Who's next? Malika Moses. All right.
The last time I was here, I did not need glasses to, but I hadn't prepared anything. Good evening, everybody. Okay. I wish to extend loving greetings to all of you, especially the Campbell family, from the Moses family. It is my good fortune to be Bob and Janet's number 4, last on the caboose of the Moses family train. Thank you to the Campbell family and the Avery Research Center for bringing us all together and giving us an opportunity to celebrate who I called Uncle Jim, but James E. Campbell, on his 100th birthday anniversary. We who are gathered here on Zoom are in person and on Zoom are so fortunate to count Jim as one of our ancestors within the freedom struggle. He was a family man and he was a race man until the very end. To spend time with Jim was to be with someone who held on to a sense of place in history. We must consider in these extraordinary times Jim's understanding of his place within history. Jim was the last in his generation who knew his grandmother, Miss Millie Cole. Millie shared with Jim her memory of being liberated as a teenager alongside her mother by the Union Army here in Charleston in 1865, and the memory of watching her being whipped. As he recalled, she would sit on the porch in a rocking chair, smoking her pipe and expressing her fierce outrage at the abuse inflicted on her mother. In Jim's words, in those moments, Miss Millie Cole was both judge and jury. She was also, as he explained, an exquisite cook. As a boy, Jim was her pot licker, that's how he described himself, and thoroughly enjoyed cleaning up with his fingers the remnants of her peach cobbler and sweet potato pies. I can envision the child who became the man enjoying his grandmother's cooking. When I last saw Jim, it was for his 94th birthday celebration, and he shared his reflections with family and friends who gathered. I was so fortunate to be present, and I recorded some of his words, and I'd like to share some of those words with you. So those two women, he's referring to Millie Cole and her mother, those two women carried within them an idea of what family and continuity was, passing through the prism of enslavement and the development of American capitalism. The memory of civilization brought millions of African people who were imported here through that prism that lasted for over 300 years, plus another 150 years of institutional segregation and the denial of citizenship participation in the full sense of the word. He went on to tell us who were present that you represent a new generation that's emerging without that memory and that direct continuity, which is successful and deeply problematic because inherent in the success is the problem of the weakness of a limited depth of memory and actual knowledge of human experience that drove my generation and the folks I knew. My father, Bob Moses, was among the folks that Jim knew. They both understood that our country lurches forward and backward. My father defined those lurches as constitutional eras. Jim's grandmother and great-grandmother survived a constitutional era which ended in 1865, and they ensured the family continuity in Charleston. Jim was only one generation removed from that era. Jim understood what my father meant by a lurch backward. I'll share another quote in which Jim reflects on the quote by his political father and mentor, Jack Odell, about the conditions we face in this country. And Jim said, "It speaks to the deep institutional forces arraigned against our development and our continuity. The gains we have made are not guaranteed in perpetuity, because you have in this country an element that would throw you back to where you were in a breath, in the tick of the clock. And you can see that now. This is the great threat we are in this political period, in the conditions we are in right now in this country." And he expressed these thoughts in 2021, or 2020, actually. Jim and my father thought deeply about the trajectory of our society and had a keen sense of the times. They asked themselves, what times are we in? What kind of country will we be? Both men understood the centrality of education and citizenship to the conditions under which we live in this country. In the constitutional era of legal slavery, which Jim's ancestors survived, literacy was illegal for those subjected to the laws of slavery. Education for those who were considered disposable was illegal. Today, literacy is legal, but illiteracy for those who are considered disposable is widely accepted. Approximately 68% of American children cannot read with proficiency. And in our last presidential election, education was not a leading election issue. My father often said that the country doesn't like to talk about what it does not want to change. So we are living through a lurch backward, a period of devolution, wherein our government is forcefully displacing people, and the privileges of citizenship are being meted out on a conditional basis. These are dire times, but I will leave you with this absolute truth. Devolution and a lurch backward must be followed by evolution and a lurch forward. So in these profound times, may we begin to prepare our lurch forward by coming together and thinking deeply about the questions Jim and my father pondered. What kind of a country do we want to be? Thank you. They did it.
Good evening. This is one of the most difficult things I've ever had to do, and that's try to talk about Jim Campbell in 5 minutes. I'm gonna try. But thanks to Erica for showing me how to solve that problem. The last time I was here with two of my best friends, Jim Campbell and Bob Moses. And they're still here because they live inside of all of us. And this is a special time, as Leica, who's another one of my extended daughters, Bob's kids, are like my kids. And I mean that this is something special. It's also, last month, I was on the stage with the daughters of three people who happens to be their 100-year birthday now. That's the daughter of Malcolm X, all right? The daughter of Medgar Evers, all right? Also, and Martin Luther King's daughter was there. And saying this is 100 year, it's Jim Campbell's 100 year also, which is amazing that you have three of these people here having 100 years, anniversary at the same time. And at the same time is, as Malika has described very well to us, is we're part of this surge back, all this at the same time. It's like the perfect storm meeting here. And there's a message here. And we've got to think about that message. Because one thing that Jim and Bob and Malcolm and Medgar, and God blessed me with the opportunity to not only knowing all three of these individuals, but also have an opportunity to work with them, to sit with them and listen to them. Spent a lot of time together. I met Jim at the same time I met Bob Moses back in the 60s during the civil rights movement work we did in Mississippi. And then I came back with the Algebra Project, and that was Jim again, and Bob, of course. And so the work we did, and Jim how we got into South Carolina was Jim Campbell. He kept saying we have to do it. One of our best projects. He used to cause of us moving to elementary school because he came and said he needed us down in St. Helena to do some work, and we didn't want to do that. Jim insisted, and we ended up there being one of the Algebra Project extension to begin pre-K all the way up to the 12th grade. Had a lot to do with Jim Campbell. I remember, but I miss a lot about Jim that everybody else talk about. When I came to South Carolina, I remember once a month, Jim and I, first I came here, I lived in Mount Pleasant, and once a month, we had lunch at the Gullet Cuisine, Charlotte and Frank. And we would get there around 12 o'clock noon. They only served lunch, and it ended up at 4. And they would tell us, y'all can stay if you want to, but we're closing up. And we would eat there. And then I moved to Somerville, is where I live now. And every week, just about every other week rather, or twice a month, Jim would drive all the way to Somerville on a Saturday, and we would sit down and talk. I remember when I missed the trips we used to take to go down to St. Helena once a month in order to pick up grocery, fresh vegetables and stuff is from the Barefoot Farmer, instead of Highway 21 rather, is what we did. And so there's a lot of anything we did, but I remember most. It had to do with this whole issue with Jim around hope. And you got to trust. Jim had a situation just before he passed. And I remember too, it was that car you're talking about. I remember when he bought that car, because he said he couldn't get a date with that old car he had, so he had to get something. He had to get something better. I think he bought it from the longshoreman. We got and it was a big car. So Jim had said he fainted, and his neighbor saw him and had him and got him to the hospital. So Jim said to me, he said, dealing with hope, he said, the last thing I remember was he was doing some work with his flower bed. He said, there was this leaf. And all I could remember doing is I reached up, grabbed that leaf. And that's the last thing I remember. He said, when I got to the hospital, he said, when I did wake up, he said, I opened my hand, Dave, and I still had that leaf. That taught me a whole lot in terms of the fact is, I think about that now, in terms of where we are and what we do. We're here gathered on this day, which is special because it's also special. It's not a coincidence in my head. It's some like divine providence, you might say, is that these 100-year anniversaries are all happening at the same time. And so we all gather here for a reason. My grandmother used to tell me that you brought on this earth for a purpose. And you're going to be around here as long as you're able to carry out that particular purpose. And Jim used to talk about, he didn't talk about the God pieces, but he said, you're here for a reason. That's how he put it. And we're here gathered today, this evening, this afternoon, for a reason. Whether to figure that out is, but the time, the surge back that Malika was talking about is what it's going to take for us to make a surge forward. And the surge back is happening at the same time, this 100-year anniversary for these great men who really fought for us, made it possible for us to do what we're doing, is for a reason. So one thing I think we should do when we leave here is that we take that spirit to get up and do something. We have to do something. Because what would they say? They would say, do something. Jim would be talking about, let's do something. And I remember all the conversations people grew up. Paul. I remember when your dad coming to me one time, that just diverted him because of a good spirit of. And he came to the house. He had a bottle of wine. He wasn't a big drinker. He'd take that one glass that lasted for the whole day, you know. But he'd say, I'm come here to celebrate. I say, celebrate what, Jim? He said, well, I just introduced my son to a new lady. I say, well, what are you talking about, Jim? Oh, yeah, man. Come on, get a glass. I say, who is the lady? Oh, man, yeah. Her name is Miss Mortgage. So we drank the wine. But I do remember, and his spirit is here. I can feel him. But when we leave here, let's take that spirit, you know, and let's try to do something. And because all that love he spread, time he had, and I've spent many, many hours with Jim. I mean, that was a thing we had ritual, you know. I mean, he was 90 some years old, and Jim was driving from here, you know. I mean, when his niece, his granddaughter was, I think it came here for a while, right? You know, and I remember that story too. There's a lot of stories I can tell that. So Jim had to get her. She felt she needed. He was tired of driving her back and forth. So he was going to buy her, so, you know, so she could get around. So I said, okay, Jim, what kind of car did you get her? Huh? What kind of car you got her? It's a two-wheel. Two with Jim. So your Jim ball was a bicycle, right? Garbage. But anyway, I just wanted to put that out there because it was just, he was such a great guy, and he's here. Let's take his spirit. Let's just do something with it, you know.
Hi, everybody. I'm James's cousin from New York, well, Jersey, and one of the things when I think about James, I think he always was thinking about his legacy, and one of the things that he would do all the time. You know, the family, when James would get up to start talking, we would look at each other. Is this going to be 5 minutes or 5 hours of talking? You know, so like, I want to talk about some family things with James, what he did for our family. So, but we all know him as an intellectual. We know him to be a scholar. We know him to be an activist. We know him to be an environmentalist. And you know, when he lived up by us in New York, he was very much involved with Black theater. He did acting. And he was involved with the different Black theater groups up in New York all the time. So that's another, you know, he was a universal man. He was a universal man. The other things, you know, I remember one time he had the family to come down here, and we were coming to a genome conference. And I'm saying, what's a genome conference? I don't know what a genome. But this was about DNA, to know how you could find out what diseases you're going to get as you age. You know, the things that we didn't know about before. And the other thing is that being somebody who wanted to make sure that his legacy was guaranteed, is that he had no problem, unlike me, you know, being an artist. And I don't want to like know about the computer and AI and all of that, but I end up having to give these young people all my money to do the work for me, you know. So, but James was smart to learn the computer. Right away, he got into it. But guess what he used it for in terms of the family? For instance, he loved his grandchildren, and he treated them like they were somebody special. So one of the things he would do in our family, he would call all the family up in the north, as well as be in contact with the people in the south, especially the young people. And the way he dealt with young people is that he was a fabulous listener. He didn't just preach like me. You know, I said in heaven, I guess I'm gonna be a preacher or something. But anyway, he was a fabulous listener to young people about who they were, where they were, what they were, and maybe what they were going to be. So I think that's one of the things. Like this morning, the young person that gave the conference, the lecture this morning, say I just caught him because they're daydreaming. You know, with young people, they pretend they're listening to, but you can catch them. I used to be a teacher. I could catch them when they're really not paying attention. But I'm gonna give him a little spotlight now. This morning, he gave a brilliant presentation. It was absolutely brilliant. But me being from old school, you got to be paying attention all the time. So he gave this brilliant talk this morning, but I was saying, where are the people from the street? See, this is what old school was like. We had the people with us, and so we need the brilliance as well as the attendance, right? So James was a brilliant listener. He had gone with me to Cuba, because I go to Cuba all the time, and he saw what was possible with the revolution. He saw what was possible. That I don't know how you're gonna get it here, and I'm on the way out, so I don't know if it's gonna come here. But he saw what was possible under a socialist system. You're not gonna get it with a capitalist system for working people, working class people. And then the last thing that I want to say about James is, like the speaker before me, it's about the work. I don't spend time talking about Trump. You know, it's like when you know somebody's a thief and they come before you, you're going to be respectful and nice, but you say, this is a thief, and I'm only letting them come in but so far into my reality. You know, so if we're going to make his legacy live, it's about what the work. I can't tell you what work to do, but everybody needs to be working instead of being distracted by Trump and his nonsense. So thank you. I hope you got a little bit about the family. He was such a great example to our family.
Thank you, everyone, for those lovely reflections. And shout out to Salifu for the teaching this morning on neocolonialism, the highest stage of imperialism. Speaking of Salifu, we did put a video together. Okay. And I'm gonna get it together. My comrades with the Low Country Action Committee made a lovely tribute video. Low Country. You got it. There you go. So y'all can also search this up on YouTube. James Ebert Campbell 100th birthday tribute. Narrated by, so Salifu and I put the shot list together. I watched the Pearls of Wisdom family interview conducted by Dana Campbell. Dana asked some wonderful questions in that interview. Thank you, Dana. The conversations with our donors, which Miss Mayo and Mr. Franks put together. And that was a lovely event at Avery like 15 years ago. So we pulled some clips from that. And we were able to, Salif put them together, and then Mosiah, raise your hand, Mosiah, narrated the video. So we're gonna listen to this. Let me see. Let me make sure the volume's all the way up. We good? Darren, volume all the way up. There we go. Yeah, that's right. Thank you. Thank you, Campbell family. Thank you, Low Country Action Committee. Thank you, Avery Research Center, for the footage. That was great. So we've got a panel discussion coming up in a few minutes. We're going to take a few minutes to prepare. So if y'all want to take a break, get some refreshments, hit the bathrooms, browse around the Campbell exhibit down at the end of the hall. We'll reconvene in 5 to 10. 5? All right. Thanks, y'all. I'm sorry. Oh, come on up, sweetie.
I wanted to say that I wish Papa in heaven a happy birthday. That's all.
Oh, Lord, my heart. All right,
Are they doing a presentation or anything? Or
we're gonna show some slides. Wyatt hates me so much. Gabby link. Let's try to reopen it. Close it. Thank you. Oh, Canva, remove accounts is so crazy. Sign up, log in. Why do you hate me, Canva? Everything was all good. There we go. Praise the Lord. Okay. Okay. And then I'm gonna send, I think there's an audio clip that I need to queue up. That's not in. I'll send that in the Zoom chat and then we'll have that somewhere. Can you turn this back on? That is for holding the mic.
I wouldn't miss it. Okay.
Oh, I already know. I know you
Yeah.
saving. Something good. No, Tim, but we'll give it to the sauce. That's all right. That's all right. Somebody.
I sure was. And we're trying to make 200. I'll take it. I'll take it.
How you doing, Mr. Girl, come on, give me some love. I ain't see you since Boone Coon Day.
Oh, you doing all right?
Yes, ma'am, you
That's
good?
good.
Good, good.
Want to be on the screen and
First of all, I just sat down.
You just sat down. We got an order, but we just come.
Everybody good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. So, yeah, I was just telling Ron and Shirley, I'm gonna do some intro remarks.
Sure.
And then I was gonna turn it over to Ron with her to offer some reflections from, what was happening on the job at that time. And then I thought we'd move to Shirley and talk about her previous, a little bit of whatever you remember from
Yeah.
those days, and then, and we'll have you wrap it up. And, the whole set.
Why is it doing the thing again?
Keep gonna want to get us to wrap it up by
Okay.
7.
Okay, now we'll get them back.
Really, if you, maybe in your initial remarks, think about like 5 or 10 minutes.
Should I close Zoom?
And then, but we'll
No.
come back and we'll do follow-up questions and have more conversation.
Sure.
So if you don't get it on the first go round, that makes it more off.
I'm sorry.
Leave you by yourself.
That's Rhonda, yeah.
What are you doing now, Rob?
15 years.
I left the city in 2000 because, at that point, I had a little bit. It was a lot of backlash for me being involved.
Sure.
And, so they masked it in a way of trying to find fault for you. It was just straight up hating the guy to be so out of control. I was like, if I don't leave. something will happen.
Trouble, more trouble.
But I'm not.
Yeah.
When I look back at it, I would have probably felt so low to allow.
But you was so by yourself because you was around so many folks.
Exactly. I really had it hard.
All right, we're gonna come back together, y'all. Sir? No, it's still, sir? Yes. I didn't touch it. All right, we're gonna come back together. Everybody's mics. Can y'all test your mics real quick?
You're not included on there, but we'll have to correct that.
Is mine on? Is on?
I'm not sure.
It's on?
Oh.
You can do, yep.
It's from this. Thank you.
Right. Where did I stop?
Yeah.
Good, we're good to go? All right, good. Thank you, Erica and the Avery Center for serving as our hosts and the organizing committee. This has been tremendous. How's the volume? Is this okay? Okay, good. Yeah, no, thank you to the Avery Center, Erica, Darren, Dr. Butler. That was a wonderful event. This is, my name is Carrie Taylor. I teach American history at the Citadel. And I'm also a member of the Charleston Worker Center with my friend Leonard Riley. And what I'm going to do is just provide some framing remarks for a bit of the history of the sanitation worker strike. And then I'm going to turn it over to first to my friend Rhonda Jones, who was for about 10 years, Rhonda drove a truck for the city sanitation department and was one of the key worker leaders in the effort to demand fairness on the job, better wages, and safer working conditions. So that's Rhonda on my far left. And then next, we'll hear from Shirley Cornell Scott to my immediate left, and Shirley played a really critical role in the struggle as, and I'm not sure how to exactly describe your role, but I think of you as kind of the manager. I mean, you were for many years Ms. Mary Moultrie's kind of right hand, making sure that. Yep, absolutely. And so Shirley was absolutely critical to all that work and had a lifetime relationship with Mary and Mr. Campbell as well, but mostly rooted in you're working on the east side, right? At the St. Julian Divine Center.
East Side Community Center then.
Mhm.
Julian Divine.
Good. So we're really honored and lucky to have Shirley with us as well. And then we'll hear from my friend Leonard Riley in the center here. Leonard is a longshoreman and a member of ILA 1422, and with together with Mr. Bill Saunders and Rosetta Simmons and Naomi White, and of course Mr. Campbell, they served as kind of an informal advisory team to the sanitation workers and were present at so many of our regular meetings, drawing on their wisdom, which I guess Mr. Campbell would have been the senior a member of the crew, but then we had Mr. Saunders and Naomi White with their deep experience of organizing the 1969 hospital workers strike. And just to set this up a little bit, I'm not sure, were you able to get the images or no? It's okay, cool. Just to kind of provide some background in the way I think about the sanitation workers, the protest, the movement of 2008, 2009, is it represented some of the unfinished business of the 1969 hospital strike, which many of you know ended very ambiguously. It really kind of ran out of steam after the state of South Carolina rejected the demands of the workers and through their union to demand collective bargaining rights. And the state of South Carolina back then and to this day has stood behind this fiction that they are unable to, that it's illegal for any public entity to collectively bargain with their workers. And so in 1969, once they came up against that, it really kind of, it was just too difficult to sustain that. And that was always Henry Nicholas, who was one of the key organizers from the union back in 1969, always felt tremendously guilty about the way that the union back then left Charleston. And so in 2007, Henry Nicholas promised and provided Ms. Moultrie and her friends with a small budget to take another crack at organizing MUSC. And there was very little response early on from the healthcare workers, but we soon discovered that there were some sanitation workers who were more than willing and eager to organize. And so at this point, I'll turn it over to Rhonda to tell us a little bit about what the workers were facing on the job.
At the time I was working at the city of Charleston, I initially came in as a collector. I was in the back of the truck. Um, we had very unsafe conditions, no good equipment. It wasn't fair pay. Oh, it wasn't fair pay between the men and the women. Um, it was a whole lot of hazing, nepotism, disrespect. I mean, like your personal business, you could literally hear them talking about it in the office when you walk up through the hall to punch it. So we were going through a lot. And when Mr. Riley, Carrie, Mr. Campbell, when they approached us about it, I was always in, because I'm from New York, so I'm a rebel. So I don't care. I don't care. I mean, hey, you got to fight till you leave, and that's that. And that's just how I am. So I was like, what could it hurt? But when I tell you, we had people that died on the job. I was in a truck, a 25-foot garbage truck with 19 tons of trash in the rain on River Road with no brakes and two collectors. And by God, stopped the truck. Um, when I was a collector, there was times that I needed to go to the restroom, and I was told the route had to get up. I had to stay on that truck, or I was going to lose my job. There was times when it came time for performance, I worked harder than everybody because I'm a single mother, and I had kids to raise and nobody to help me with them. So it was a priority for me to do this. And I did it no matter what. No matter, they gave me 3 routes, I did it. No question. I mean, sometimes I was picking up so much people work. Sometimes I was getting off 11 o'clock at night from 6 in the morning. Um, it was a lot. But when Mr. Raleigh, Mr. Campbell, Carrie, Bill Saunders, when they all got involved, we started to see a light in the end of the tunnel, because even though we didn't get what we wanted, they knew they were being watched. So it had to change up a little bit. It was like they set a bomb off, because a lot of times people don't know there's fire until they see the smoke. And people are so conditioned to being treated so low just to barely make it that they just don't argue about it. They just do it. And so for me, when they got involved, it changed the whole dynamic for me and the way I think, because I had to decide not to get treated like that, not to go quietly. And it made me they put a black ball on me. They bullied me. They took my raises. They gave me the worst equipment. I mean, anything you can think of could happen. It happened to me. But when I tell you, the person it built in me, you can't stop me. You
Good.
can go ahead.
Okay, well, again, I'm Shirley Cornell Scott. I met Mary Moutry in 1980 when I first got out of college over at Century Divine. I got a job over there, and she became my mentor. I remember when I was a little girl in Simonton School. That's why she's Miss Moutry, and Mr. Campbell is Mr. Campbell, and not Jim and James as Mr. Campbell and Miss Moutry. When I was in elementary school at Simonton when the nurses' strike was going on. And now here come all these people down the street, and they pushed the school door open, let the children out. At that time, my mom was a maid at Simonton School. She would cook and she would clean. So me and my sister, we raced over to my mom and we said, "Can we go? Can we go?" Being the mom that my mom was, she said, "Yeah, go." So we went out there and they gave us the little paper 11.99 hat. I was a little girl. You couldn't tell me I wasn't marching and doing something. And I remember that. But by the grace of God, I ended up working with Miss Mucci at the later years. But anyway, she always talked about the nurses' strike. She was a strong, forward lady, and she wasn't scared. Mary Mucci was not a scared woman. She would say what she had to say and at all costs. And it caused a lot of commotion on our jobs because we worked with the City of Charleston Department of Recreation, who was also not fair, but we had people of color in the little higher positions that kind of settled down everything. They got a raise, so, but she and I, we felt the difference, but it was okay because we was getting all right in the pay. And then there came the time when Mr. Campbell came about. I just didn't meet Mr. Campbell while we was doing the 1199 trying to organize. I met Mr. Campbell at Rivers Elementary through my now adult children through the algebra program. And I knew that he was a smart man. He was very philosophical. He always had a way of telling you things. Sometimes he's telling you off and he's telling so smart you don't even know he's telling you off. You know? So, but anyway, I ended up encountering again with him at the Chronicle building, where we was trying to organize the sanitation strike with Mr. Nick and Mr. Rowley, and we was trying to organize them with Rhonda them. They had more problems in the city and sanitation than we had in recreation. So me and Miss Mootry, being the brave woman she was, we decided we would bear towards sanitation. And we attempted and we tried hard. Mr. Campbell was always there. He always had the answer, and sometimes I had to write things down and go home and think about, you know, some of the big words he used. I'm a college graduate and I thought I knew it all. But he would tell it in a way that I had to go and think over it. But we never got the union off of the ground because at least I'm going to say 90, and I might be a little high, maybe a little low, but at least 90% of the employees was not like Miss Rhonda. They were men and women who I guess had legitimate reasons for not wanting to join. You know, oh, I got a family to feed. They're going to fire me off my job. I can't do this. I can't do that. But Mr. Campbell would always come at the meeting trying to instill in them. In Mr. Campbell's absence, I would like to say that he is where my strength comes from, because I ain't scared. I learned how to be bold, but I learned how to be decent. I ain't learned how to talk as intellectual as him yet, but I'm on the way, you know. Me and him had a conversation. It was one rainy day. We was just sitting in the Chronicle building, and we had a conversation, and he was explaining to me about cowardness, about, you know, how we can't cower down, you know, and he understand that we gotta, you know, feed our family, we gotta do this, but we still are human, we still are men and women. And as these days here approach with the orange-haired man, 45, wherever he called himself, you know, I'm wondering, you know, where did our bravery go? Because all of a sudden, I'm seeing that cowardness again. But I'm a praying soul and I'm a strong believer, and I'm also an activist. I believe that somewhere down the line, we're going to lay that aside and we're going to go back to where our ancestors was. We probably won't be taking off heads with swords per se, but we're going to be taking off heads. And I'm believing that. I'm believing that. But me and Paul and I worked together. And when I met Mr. Campbell, I was like, oh, you Paul's daddy. And you know what he said, Paul? Yeah, that's my honor. But he loved you. He loved us. And I think he loved us even more when he saw that we wasn't scared and that we were strong and we were, you know, willing to speak up. I spoke up a couple of times and I got consequences years ago that I thought was bad consequences. But the day when I look at it, those were the best consequences I ever had. So I appreciate Mr. Campbell and I appreciate the work we all did, even though we didn't get up off the ground, but it's never too late. It's never too late.
All right, where do I go? I got two powerful ladies on the side of me. But you know, I want to reflect. First, let me start with Mr. French. That building, that paper was very, very substantial. And what we did, what we thought, how we got it out. So I want my hats off to him as well as we talk about these other giants in the movement. Mr. Campbell. I met him many years ago. I was a new worker on the waterfront, and right now I'm in my 50th year on the waterfront. So I first met Mr. Campbell, and he usually met with the retired workers. And he had this way of tying them into what was going on and applauding their effort to change things, not just for longshoremen, for the community. And he tied these things together. And I sort of got hooked on it. That's when he showed up at the hall, I followed him to the meetings. And him and I started to develop a conversation that continued until the day it didn't continue. But it was so powerful. He personified what it takes to keep a movement going, to educate, to lead by example. He was in person in all these meetings we met with his group.
Yes, he
And he would walk the streets with us as well. He'll tell you now, I got a little age on me, but I'm a walk. So as I reflect on Mr. Campbell's legacy, what he provided for me personally, he connected education, philosophy, everything. And he did something, he used it. It wasn't in vain.
No, it wasn't.
It was a tool to advance the community cause. I think every effort to change situations that I know of, he would actually give me a call now, though, keep me up with what's going on. And he was willing and able, and he was there. Now, we'll come back to him, Miss Mary Moutry.
Oh, yes. She was a powerhouse.
You know, I'm struggling to put words to the relationship we developed as we strategize, as we try to elevate these workers that were having their reason for existing crashed every day when they went to work. There was a man that I think most of us would know, and I don't know the details very well. He worked in the back of a garbage truck. And he was crushed to death in the back.
Yes.
You know, there were some stories about incidents that were really powered down so the community won't be as. And if I identified that person, every one of you would know his son. It happened in the peninsula.
Yes. Yep.
So, and I'm raising that because one evening we came and we were talking about the fact that it was about 100 degrees that day, like with the 3 days we just experienced. They actually gave the horses a break. Sanitation workers had to keep going.
We had to keep going. We couldn't take a break.
And it wasn't called to their attention. That's their priority. That it was intentional that they continued to work. Didn't have a water can on the back of the truck.
That's right.
These are experiences that drives people to have somebody advocate for them. It should be against the law for us to sit around and see these workers go through that kind of stuff and don't raise up. Don't write a sign or don't show up in support of them. You know, we brought it up in city council meetings. We brought it up in every form we could.
Marching in MLK.
But Mr. Campbell, Mary Moutry, Mr. Francis, they did write about it. But this is what it takes. It's important. We are still behind in Charleston.
Very far behind.
And I'm just talking about Charleston because we live here. There are many more places in the state that we're behind in the state. And the one thing that Mr. Campbell impressed every time we approached the problem methodically, he planned it, he organized, he helped us get prepared for double-headed results, you know, and how to hit back or strike back, when, critical timing, you know. I am still so impressed by the life. And when he told me his life story, that should, if I was a movie maker, we would have a movie about that man's life and his contribution. He was fuel to a flame, making it a big fire in the chimney. You know, if we follow this example, if we look at the gravity of what he did to keep the movement alive, he met with workers that didn't have more than probably a sixth grade education.
True.
And he expounded, they loved him, and he encouraged them to get involved in how they can make it different. So Mr. Campbell was so much more, and if I had the hour, I could keep talking about him. But Mr. Saunders, God bless him, he did quite a bit of work there as well. These people that I see now has strengthened my resolve.
Yes, yes.
To say the word union. People don't like to say the word union. You know, I was in a meeting Monday night, they were talking about how should we say that differently. We should advocate for working people. We should, don't use the word fight for their rights. Let's say we stand for their rights. You starting to compromise before we get the conversation going.
Exactly.
And of course, I objected, but in a way that didn't dismantle the group. But we have to say what we stand for.
Absolutely. And mean it.
And we have to live what we stand for.
Absolutely.
The other side of the equation ain't offering up nothing without a demand. So that's why we have to organize workers. That's why we came to sanitation workers. We canvassed the city. We had so much petitions. When we put it down in city council, we put the boxes and boxes and boxes down. There were still very few councilmen brave enough to say they got a valid point.
Yep.
They got evidence that the citizens of Charleston are ready for them to be rewarded to an organization that offers them the right protection on the job. The citizens, we had boxes of petition down there.
Yes.
And we had some trickery in the procedure. It just didn't happen. But we had ongoing conversation. We had the same thing at MUSC. Mary Moutry.
The nurses strike, yeah.
And we were organizing people to the point, even if they didn't get an organization, you said something very significant. Would it build in you? We have to build pride in people that work. The workers of this country provide comfort, provide security for all of us. How dare us not support them? We can't talk it into existence. We got to fight for it and make it come into existence. We got to hold our politicians accountable That's what Mr. Campbell said. How are we going to let them know that we're dissatisfied with their performance instead of taking a photograph with us? You know, we've got to awaken to the point that we have a responsibility, each of us sitting here, for these people.
That's right. That's right.
These people. If they had a shirt of my choice now, I would have, but say, my future, our future.
Our future.
We have a responsibility that to just not sit and remember the work that Mr. Campbell advocated for and got all up in, Mary Moutry,
Yes.
Jim French, Mr. Saunders. We have an obligation to do what we can do to further that legacy. I'll be organizing workers until the day that they're organized to take me away.
That's right.
But we have to do it. Our future is at stake.
Yes, it is.
And the way we live our future is at stake. We shouldn't compromise before we get started. If we're trying to convince somebody, how do you convince them by taking a soft position at the start?
Absolutely. You can't.
You know, some people get paid to do that kind of thing. They infiltrate the movement.
Yes, they do.
The reaching the movement.
Yeah.
We got people that's doing it today.
Yes.
And then they're gonna get people that look like you and I. So they won't be as obvious. But what comes out of their mouth and what they actually do betray them.
Exactly.
So which side are you gonna be on? Are you gonna be on the side that to raise your grandchildren to stand up for what's right? Are you gonna be silent to let this continue? I said, no, Mr. Campbell would say it more eloquently. But he would say, no. Mary Moutry would say it in that soft voice. But she would say, no.
No.
You know, so it's a pleasure to be here. And as you know, the passion, we got to have the passion to do the work. Yeah, that's it.
Leonard mentioned the petition drive. So we had
Flyers passing out and signing petition. We had all these signatures from all over.
we got thousands of signatures from
Absolutely.
residents on the peninsula. One of my strongest memories of that is being on your organizing team
Yes.
and just watching you organize. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. You've talked about Mr. Campbell's ideas and his brilliance, but in terms of talking to people, I mean, you're a force of nature. Just go into a community and start talking to 3 kids, and within 20 minutes, all the parents are out. Everybody, generations are coming out. They say, you've got to sign this. I need you to sign this. And I mean, it was absolutely amazing. But that petition drive, I think, was in a lot of ways, that was the peak of our public work, but it also represented kind of the end of it, because it was at that point that we presented the petitions at the city council, and we had 25 great workers, including Rhonda. You spoke at the city council. I remember that. Mr. Campbell spoke, Leonard spoke, and made the case to the mayor and to the council that they needed to collectively bargain with their workers. And as I mentioned, just as they did in 1969, they hid behind this fiction that no, our hands are tied. It is illegal for us to negotiate with the workers. But even though officially we were never able to gain any collective bargaining rights, there were all kinds of conversations taking place behind the scenes where the city had to make some real concessions to the workers. And I'm thinking about your allowances for gloves and protective equipment.
We got equipment because we didn't have it. We had a collector on commercial that died of, we had a collector on commercial
that weren't getting the right equipment, and he got wet up in the rain. He got pneumonia and he died. And we ended up getting more equipment. We got coolers on our trucks.
The water was a big deal.
Mandatory breaks. A lot of things that this brought on. Mr. Campbell was like, no, this is not fair. No,
Yep.
it will not be allowed. Don't allow that.
Erica, I don't know if you're able to pull up the audio, because there's if you can, it'd be great, but there's a 2-minute clip of Mr. Campbell's remarks to the city council, which I think are.
It kept crashing earlier when I tried. So
Gotcha.
let's see if we can get it to play.
You know what? That's the whole meeting. That's the start of the meeting. Yeah.
Do you remember
I
where
might remember where it is. It's like 141.5.
Okay.
Try that.
Go back.
Yeah, one. See if it's close.
Yep, that's him.
Pull it back just to like a minute. Where?
I know that corn cob pipe. He talking about Millie Go. He talking about Millie Go.
Back like like a minute to get his.
It's you.
You can fast forward that. Okay. Oh, that's it. You were next.
I was next.
But yeah, I don't. Any concluding thoughts?
Well, first, I like this. If there are any quick question that might be in your mind that you want to ask, a statement you want to give, but if not,
Okay, I just wonder if any of you would care to talk about the fact of the impact that, especially locally, that the concessions had with why we stopped fighting. You know, the getting of the gloves and the getting of the water containers. I mean, that's progress. But at the same time, how did that stop the momentum from the bigger demands?
I think that some of the folks got $2 more, $1.50 more. And when they got that more, especially knowing that that a union was attempted to be formed and they were already scared. And the fact that they got the majority of them, I'm not thinking all, got a few dollars more. It was like a pacifier. Right. It pacified them to, and if you got 500 people working and you're trying to do a union and not enough want to, only 20 of them want to, you know, it's like bringing 100 kids in a room and you ain't got nothing for them to do. So I think the pacifying, that's my personal thought.
Yeah, I think that the ground is a tougher plow. Over there, people were targeted by their participation, but more importantly, when you start having meetings and people don't come, they're disinterested or they get scared of what's going to happen, it starts to weigh on the one or two people that are coming. We've seen some of our leaders start to early retire out, try to get out before trouble came. So I think the question is still before them is it remains who's willing to take up the torch and walk with it. So, I mean, we have the Longshore is a good example. We have if we stop working, somebody know. And so it's a different scenario, different kind of organizing that we have to bring into play. And I think that's really what it is. I think the willingness is there, you know, but a test of that is to see who's willing to talk to each worker, talk to these different workers and ask them the question. They will probably say, about that. Because the history is a teacher also. And if the history tells the truth, and some people have been crushed trying to do it. But if we can show them other history where they were successful in the long run, right? And I think that's incumbent upon all of us to, we're willing. If we can contact workers that's willing to talk about how do we improve their lot, we'll do it. I'll do it 7 days a week. But that's one of the things that impede that progress.
And another thing I think is false promises. A lot of them got false, just like we today is still living today. I think false promises, and I think that if we can educate, you know, folks on, you know, you don't know what's going to be false or what's going to be real, but logically thinking, you know, if you promise something, it shouldn't be umpteen years and you still haven't seen it yet. So I think false promises had a lot to do with it too.
But we got work to do.
In my opinion, the retaliation, to me, in order for us to further the movement, you gotta be hungry. They gotta be more hungry for fair treatment than whatever money they could give. Because it was not enough money to be given for the way I was treated, the inhumane way I was treated, the things I went through, but I never gave up. I was a single mother. I had kids to raise, but I still kept coming. I never stopped. My work shined because I'm a good worker. But I also know that I deserve more. And Mr. Campbell said, you don't deserve to be treated like that. And I just believe that. I bought into it.
And reforming the city. Let's elect some people that really gonna stand up and say amen to what these people are experiencing. That's citywide, statewide. Yeah.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is George Temple, and I knew Mr. Campbell as an organizer, an activist, somebody who was concerned about advancing the community. And we really got close when he asked me to do a seminar in molecular biology because I was a professor at the medical university then. I would leave you with what he was, and that is he did something, and his relatives spoke out and said the same thing. Our charge now for these young people is to do what he would have done, do something.
Do something. Amen. Got a question, Mike?
Oh, yeah, please.
Hello, my name is Harold Carrillo. I'm the great grandson of Millie Cole. That's okay. I'm great grandson of Millie Cole. When you were talking about the hospital workers strike, that's probably one of the most poignant times in my life. I was, I think, a sophomore, junior at Burke High School. I can remember that day that the freedom fighters came beating on the doors. And we walked out of Burke School. Some of the teachers tried to keep us in, but that's when we felt that revolutionary spirit. And, you know, I think we either went to County Hall or either at Morris Brown we ended up to, I can't remember, but Coretta Scott King was there. And I was actually walking with your cousin, Randall Brooks, that day. I remember real well. But I asked my uncle brother once where that spirit comes from. And he said, you know, it comes from, you know, Millie Cole, you know, smoking the corn pipe. And I didn't, one part you didn't say, how she would tell us how she would sit on that front porch on 159 President Street and cuss the Buckra all day long. If y'all know who the Buckra is, I can tell you. And something I share with people, how about something we do in Charleston, we refer to the old Buckra, and I hear it from time to time in movies or speeches, but that now help me remember something. During the hospital workers strike, is that when we had the curfews in Charleston?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That was the.
Yeah, that was a hell of a time in this city. And, you know, we were mad. We were ready to do something and, you know, wasn't so nice.
Yeah.
But thanks for reminding me and thank you.
Anybody else got questions, comments?
One more comment. What are we gonna do? What are we committed to doing? You know, it's evident that we lose some organization along the way, but what about forming new ones, you know, and try to do something with what we find ourselves in now? I know we got a couple of organizations that's meeting, but it's not nearly enough. So
I guess I was just going to ask, like, what is this? What do you see as the status right now? What do you think are the steps that are needed? What is the situation with the sanitation workers? Is it satisfactory now, or are there still issues that the community needs to be, you know, aware of? Or what do you see as, you know, what other inequities are there that you think this community really needs to focus on?
well, personally, I to be honest with you, these young ladies are not presently associated with it. She's moved on, and we're still around, but we have to inquire. You know, I can assure you that all of those ills haven't been reformed or fixed, and we should call the local TV station or whoever, if they got some investigative reporters, just to talk to some of these people about the conditions that they work under. They serve us every day. They keep the city clean. Else nobody would want to come here. So we can play our civic role by simply asking a question to do some investigative reporting. I tell you what, one of my big sore spots is still MUSC. And maybe not only MUSC, but MUSC treat workers badly.
I work for them.
And listen, I've been a patient there, but I'm talking about the conversation I've had with workers one-on-one, just stopping in the cafeteria and talking to workers that come in. But see, we are trusting ourselves to that care. And you got people that are being humiliated and they're bearing grudges against the system. We can make it a better place. The hospital cares 100% trying to heal people, but you're hurting them. You're infecting them with unsatisfied life when they go home, when they leave home from the stresses of the job. We need more advocacy for the workers there. Now, they might not want to call it a union. We would go to these, what they call it, their meetings every their board meetings. And we had a spot on that agenda. But we were making a little bit too much progress, so they found a way to eliminate that contribution. But if those of us that are interested, talk to a few people that work at it and say, I'm satisfied. Because you're going to go, they're going to do heart surgery on you, they can do all kinds of surgery. See if they're satisfied. We expect a lot of them, but this community can support them as well. So it's not going to fall out of the air. Power surrenders, nothing, right? You have to make a demand.
Okay, hold on. We got 1, 2, 3, and then we're gonna wrap up these last 3 questions.
Okay. I like what you said. You got this group of people here. What do you want from us? What is it that we can say, walk out of here and say you want us to do to support what you tried to say needs to happen?
Before you answer.
Yes, my answer.
Before you answer, let's get all the.
Okay.
Who was the other hand? Get all 3 questions.
Yes. Could you give us an update on the status of the terminal up on I-26? I think we went to the Supreme Court, and if I'm not mistaken, the Union won, but is the port open and are the longshoremen operating the cranes?
My question is similar to the one before, but what critique or something that young organizers you think can do better, young organizers of today, like under 40, can do better in Charleston, but just in general?
Okay.
Thank you. Questions?
That's it.
Right ahead.
All right. I'm not the smartest person in the world, number one, but I do know what works. Getting involved. We try to miss as many meetings as possible. I suggest that we get involved in the meeting. I'll get somebody involved and have a representative participate in the city council meeting and the county council meetings. You know, we got, in my opinion, teachers are in trouble, but they don't know it. They don't seem to know it. They made a little progress because they got together a little bit, but they fell short of having a body that makes a demand constantly. So my answer to that is getting involved. Getting involved, get your church and everything involved.
Maybe a little bit even more specifically, we have 3 ongoing organizing drives among aerospace workers here in South Carolina, among fast food workers, and among federal workers who were trying to pull together to push back against job cuts and service cuts. So if anyone in the room knows of any Boeing workers or other aerospace workers, if you know of anyone working in food and hospitality, or if you know any federal workers, postal workers, the NOAA, the Department of Defense, American AFGE, who represents Social Security, and you think they might be interested in a conversation around organizing, please forward their names to Leonard Riley or to me, and we'd be happy to connect them with other workers and organizers who are
Or go,
working on that.
go online to look up CAFE, Charleston Alliance for Fair Employment. And,
My word,
go ahead.
this is a comment, my word to you would be to tell everybody in here and everybody that you know that this new thing is going on now to get the boots on the ground. It's called 2025 commitment. Put your boots on the ground. Let's get the word 2025 total commitment.
The second question had to do with
The terminal.
the terminal. I'm proud to say we won that outright. We have all of the jobs there now. The Hugh Letterman is not, that they're gonna build about 2 more berths, 10 more cranes, and yes, we're gonna operate those cranes. So it was a tough fight, but we won it, and rightfully so. And
Advice for young organizers. Anyone want to?
okay.
There you go.
Organizing, I think, begins right here. It's got to be in your gut. You just don't, it's not about education. It's about wanting to make a difference. Either you have experienced some of the things you're trying to correct, your family has experienced it, people in your community have experienced it. You got to want to do it because they don't get paid enough. But we can't afford to stop. We have to grow organizers, but that commitment to fight for that change has to be in there. You know, you have to live it. You know, I know we got some time. That was when I was a senior at St. Andrews. We were forced to go to St. Andrews High School. And I had this course of college prep. So, and I walked in the classroom, the lady said, "You don't belong in here." "What are you talking about? Is this algebra 3 and trig?" She said, "Yeah, this is for people going to college." This is West City at St. Andrews High School. These things happen. But guess what? That didn't discourage me. I went to who I thought that could have right. I went to the guidance counselor. And we got this grade. You got to have it in here. You got to recognize the enemy. If you don't recognize the enemy, it's going to trip you up. So I think that comes from here. The young organizers, you have to be in the community. You have to experience some of what has happened, what's not happened that should be happening. You got to want to correct it. That pay is associated, but pay isn't the thing that drives you.
Injustice, the one is injustice.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Taylor, Miss Shirley, Mr. Lana, Miss Rhonda. Thank you, y'all.
Thank you all.
This has been a wonderful, wonderful tribute, 100th birthday celebration for Uncle Brother Comrade James Campbell. We've been here all day celebrating Mr. Campbell. I was up late putting the finishing touches on the video and the PowerPoint, and midnight came through, and I said, "Oh, happy birthday, Mr. Campbell!" So we're gonna keep celebrating until August 1st and go into Black August, ready to fast train and fight. All day, folks have been asking what y'all still got hot mics. All day, folks have been asking what they can do. And in the spirit of James Campbell, in the spirit of Malcolm X, in the spirit of Fannie Lou Hamer, in the spirit of Yori Kochiyama, Ella Baker, all the people that we like to shout out and repost and wear on our t-shirts, they were never not a part of revolutionary organizations. When one organization stopped serving them, they were joined another one. When there was the organization they wanted to be a part didn't exist, they created that organization. And so I have up here just a few of the organizations that I am a member of. And this is all because of the influence that my mentor, James Campbell, had on my life. So I'm a co-founding member of the Low Country Action Committee. We are a Black-led grassroots organization dedicated to Black liberation through service, political education, and collective action. We are also an official chapter of the National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression, which Mr. Campbell was a co-founding member of. It came out of the Free Angela movement. I am also the district organizer for the Freedom Road Socialist Organization, Charleston District. I am the faculty advisor of the Students for Democratic Society here at the College of Charleston campus, and I'm also in the leadership of Charleston CSO, Charleston Community Service Organization, which is an immigrants' rights group here in Charleston. And so I'm about what I be talking about, and that's all because of Mr. Campbell, and I want to be like him when I grow up. And so if you want to get involved, you know, there's so many things that you can do. We got members of the Elbit out of South Carolina Coalition. I don't know how many of y'all know, but there's an Elbit weapons manufacturer in Ladson, and they make howitzer cannons that they ship to Israel to aid in the genocide against Palestinians. Every Thursday, the Elbit out of South Carolina Coalition hosts a picket in front of the weapons manufacturer. They meet at the Walmart in Ladson, and they shuttle over to the front of the Elbit factory, which has no sign in front of it. And they've been picketing every Thursday since October 7th, 2024. So if you want to get involved, join them every Thursday, 2:30. Just meet them at the Walmart. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. There are so many organizations that you can be involved in Charleston. There are so many fights that you can be involved in. We do a food drive every third Saturday here at Avery with the Low Country Action Committee. This Saturday, we're going to be doing a back to school drive with the Robert Mills Manor, the community right here behind Avery off Bowfane Street. We're going to be giving away book bags and school supplies and a newsletter all about Black August. We're going to start hosting general body meetings. All of these organizations host monthly meetings. So, you know, take a picture, stay in contact, and join an organization fighting for justice. You're never too old. You're never too young. We need elders. We need mentors. We need young folks. We need intergenerational relationships in order to move these organizations forward. There's always going to be these mass mobilizing events. The president is always going to be inciting, you know, crazy things that happen. People are getting kidnapped. People are being deported. Police are going to keep manhandling Palmetto Rose artisans. They're going to keep enforcing these dumb curfews, which we currently have. You know, right now, this weapons manufacturer is going to continue to, you know, build these weapons that are being used to genocide Palestinians, and at the expense of our local schools because they're getting tax breaks that would otherwise go to Charleston County School District. These things are going to continue to happen, and people are going to continue to get out of the street. The important thing is what's happening in between these mass mobilizing events, and that's the organizing, and that's what Mr. Campbell taught me. So shout out to Mr. Campbell. Shout out to all of you. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you everyone who joined us online today. Y'all browse around, mingle, get your handouts, get your books, make a go plate, look at the exhibit, and we're gonna be out of the building by 8 p.m. 7:20. Thank you so much.
All right. Where'd y'all get those books? Where'd you get those books?
Be logging off. I'm cutting off the live stream. Thank you everybody who joined us online. And if you're watching it late, thank you too.
We're working, but it's all attributed to having a better, having good things happen on your job.